Morning, everyone. I don't know if you caught the allusion to Franciscanism with this gospel message. We hear about Jesus and we hear about food. That is very Franciscan. When I was looking into the order, my sister called me the weekend I got back from the Come and See weekend. And she said, "How was it?" And I said, "Well, it was good. We had dinner, and then we had a meeting, and then we had a little snacks and drinks afterwards. And we went to bed. We got up the next morning. We had morning prayer and mass, and we had breakfast and a meeting, and then lunch, and a meeting, and then dinner, and then a meeting, and then snacks. And the next day we got up, and she said, "All you did was eat." I said, "This is the community for me." But I think of all the times that Jesus was invited to dinner, he would have declined this one because it was a leading Pharisee who invited him. And he knows how many times he had that encounter with the Pharisees that weren't the best. The Pharisees, in a way, were people like Debbie Downer. They always found fault with somebody. And Jesus must have known he wasn't going to win, that no matter what he did, they were looking for something to fault him with. But Jesus turns the tables and he actually tells them what their fault is, that they weren't interpreting the laws the right way. They were becoming legalistic. They were becoming judgmental. Now, all Pharisees weren't bad people. They were trying to do the right thing, but they lost the meaning behind the law. And I think you are well aware that there are Pharisees among us today as well. People who are very legalistic, who try to find fault in everything. I remember going to Mass with my ex-girlfriend. I made a mistake one day when I said that. I said I want to remember going to Mass with my girlfriend, and the head just shut up. He's got a girlfriend. No, my ex before I was in priesthood, my girlfriend. We went to church, and I remember we went to communion, and we got back to the pew, and we knelt, and we said a few prayers, and I kind of elbowed her, and I said, "Mary, look at this. Look at those people going up to communion. They're just chit-chatting in line. They don't even recognize who they're going up to receive." And she looked at me and said, "Michael, you just got back from communion. Shouldn't you be praying?" Humility. Humility. Pharisees wanted to do the right thing, but it became all about them. It became about what was the best way to please God. We got to keep these rules and these regulations. But unfortunately, it became less about God and more about them. And it caused division among the people because the people could see the hypocrisy that was out there. I think the church wants to remind us in this gospel today about our own lives, to make sure that we look at our own lives and why we're called to do the things we're called to do, why we're called to be humble people, not judgmental people. We need to ask ourselves, do we do things just for a ritual's sake? Or do we do them because there's a love of God and others in our heart? I think sometimes we do things because we want other people to see the good that we're doing. I think we have a tendency to try to earn God's love. I'll do this for this person. I'll say these prayers. I'll go to Mass every week. If I do that, God will love me more. That's not true. He can't love you more than he loves you now. He created you. You are the apple of his eye. We're called to do good things because it comes from our heart, because we want to do things because we want to show God how much we love him, not in order to gain his love, but we do those things because out of love from him. It's a spirit of humility in a way. That's what both the first reading and the gospel really are about. It's about humility, about recognizing that we're not God and that we are his creations. No one can earn heaven by the things that we do. We do the things because we love God. There's this saying attributed to St. Francis, I am what I am before God and nothing else. Francis knew he wasn't better than anyone else. In fact, that humility that he had was what allowed him to be friends with the outcast and the lepers, as well as the Pope and the saints of the day, because he wasn't looking at what they did. He was looking at his own sinfulness, his own faults. We heard how the Pharisees were watching Jesus. We heard how Jesus was watching them and saw that hypocrisy. Jesus still watches us today. What does he see in us? Does he see a person who wants to just follow the rules but doesn't have any concern for anybody else? Does he see a hypocrisy in our hearts? Or does he see a person who loves him and does the things that we do because we love God? I say it in confession quite often. I said, I think we've forgot a lot about gratitude, about recognizing how much God has done for us, how much God continues to do for us. We become lost in our own thoughts and our own words, and we forget to say thank you to him. Let's make sure our hearts are filled with gratitude for everything that God does for us. And if they're truly filled with gratitude, the good works and the things that we do for our parish, for our community, is going to flow not out of a sense of obligation, but out of a sense of thanksgiving. May God see the love in our hearts and one day welcome us into his kingdom.